My name is Deedee Madison. I have been doing this for 8 years, and I love everything about safety. You know, when I was asked, could you talk about, what can you talk about for 5 hours? And I'm like, are you kidding? I can talk about this for months, and I'll never get tired. And that's what I do on a daily basis, is talk about safety, encourage people to be safe. You know, you guys, here's the deal. You guys came here today with your 10 fingers and toes, if you have your 10 fingers and toes. You came here in one piece, and that's the way we want you to go home. And as I tell my foremen and my guys, you're welcome to get people dirty and tired, but you're not allowed to hurt them. You're not. You're not allowed to make sure, you're allowed to make sure people work safe, do the safe thing, and they go home in one piece. I don't know if you guys know a lot about OSHA. Let me pull this up real quick. So first we're going to go over what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to talk to you guys about OSHA. What is OSHA? A lot of you guys may not know what OSHA is, and so I figure if you guys are going to tell you what to do, if this organization is going to tell you what to do, you should probably know something about them. We're going to talk about a health and management safety system, You used to hear it about a health and safety program. You guys used to hear that? They call it a program all the time. And what's your safety program? OSHA doesn't want us to call it a safety program anymore. They want us to call it a safety system. We're going to talk about what programs under OSHA you have to have written, which ones you have to train on, what are the mandatory posters you have to have on your jobs. So when they come, I think you guys have it in your books. You have some OSHA posters, but you also will have some other posters that are required by the state and by Federal Highway Workers Administration if you guys work on highways. We're going to talk about record keeping, and we're going to talk to you about some resources. How many of you, do you all work in construction? Is that what you guys do? Okay. Just want to make sure that I'm talking about the right stuff with you guys. So here's OSHA. OSHA was passed in 1970 and signed into law by Richard Nixon. And what he did was put out the Occupational Safety Administration. You also hear it as the Occupational Safety Administration, Occupational Safety and Health Act. Went into 1970. And when you start thinking about what was happening in the 1960s, 1950s, 1940s, people were dying. And it became an issue. Congress finally said, wait a second, you should not have to worry about if you're making a living, you shouldn't have to worry about your lives. And so Congress said, we're going to pass this, and it passed with bipartisan approval. You know, there wasn't the bickering you see in Congress today. They said, you know what, we're going to protect our American workers. We want to make sure they come home and they come to work, they make their living, they can go home to support their family. Also in 1970, if you look, there were 14,000 workers killed on the job, so one about every 38 days. In 1910, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you'll also see it abbreviated later as BLS, this reported number fell to 45, or one worker about every 12 days. One worker in every 12 days right now is too much. It's too much. If you start looking at Oklahoma, how many workers die in Oklahoma each year? In the last month, there were 10 workers killed in Oklahoma. That was in August. That's too many. And I'm going to tell on my company because I had a worker killed in August in Oklahoma. I don't want you guys to have to go talk to the family and say your loved one's not going to come back, or hold their 10-year-old child while they're crying on your shoulder because their dad was killed or their mom was killed. This is really important, and I take my job seriously, and I feel like I failed not only that gentleman and his family, but my whole company because we missed something. And what I have to do now is figure out what I missed and go back and reevaluate our whole system and figure out where this big hole is and plug that hole because it cannot happen again. U.S. employment has doubled over to over 130 million workers, and that's at 7.2 million work sites. That's huge. Compared to the way it was in 1970, we have quadrupled our workforce. But we still are killing 12 people one person every 12 days. That's crazy. As I said, the day that my employee was killed, another person was killed in Oklahoma, the same day. That's crazy. We are better than that. Oklahoma's better than that. Our country's better than that. And those of us who are employing and keeping our employees safe are better than that. The rate of reported serious workplace injuries and illnesses have dropped markedly from 11 per 100 workers. And when I will talk about this 100 workers, this is going to be significant later when we're talking about record keeping, because everything's based on 100 workers, okay? In 1972 to 3.5 per 100 workers in 2010. You still start thinking, this is the serious illnesses and injuries that were reported. And you start thinking, have you guys heard about near misses? Do you know what those are? It's something that could have happened and could have caused a really bad accident or injury. You know, me walking across this floor and tripping on this cord. You know, I see it there, but, you know, I could mark it. I can say, hey, guys, there's a cord here. Don't trip on the cord. I could do nothing and just keep walking over it and hope my luck holds out. Or, you know, am I going to bet my life on luck that one day I'm going to walk across this cord and I'm not going to fall and hit my head and break my neck? No. You got to start thinking about the little things. You know, think about the little things you did on the way to work today. Any of you guys talk on your cell phone when you drove coming in? I did. Any of you guys drink coffee? Oh, I did.
Why did you?
Why did I? Oh, because I was driving from Tulsa and I really needed some coffee. You know, I'm human. Yes, I'm a safety manager, but I'm human. And you have your lapses. I tell the story and my guys give me the biggest grief for it. But before I was safety, and I'm going to say before I was safety, when I was in my 20s, I lived in Hawaii. Well, you don't go to the beach with hairy legs. So I'd be driving to the beach, shaving my legs. That's super smart, right? But I never, you know, at the time I didn't think about it. I was just like, I'm young, I'm invincible, I could do this, no big deal. Now you think about it, and you guys out here, you guys look at it and you think, oh, those women who put makeup on the way to work. Oh. You all do something, and I see people driving down the road reading the newspaper. Driving, you know, my favorite is the people who are yelling at you about keeping your kids safe as their kids are jumping around in the back seat with no car seat or no seat belt. You have people who are whipping in and out of traffic. If you start asking people, what kind of driver are you? They're going to say, I'm the best driver there is. But if you ask everybody, about 90% of people are going to say, I am the best driver there is, and you can't tell me different. But 95% of accidents that happen on the roadway are because of people's errors. So if 90% of people are so great, why are 95% of the accidents caused by human error? What's happening here? Is it going to be happening because, well, I'm the best out here, guys, and sorry, you guys kind of suck when it comes to driving, and you need to get out of my way because I'm the best driver there is. But you'll hear that. I hear my guys tell me, I had a guy tell me, I am the safest equipment operator you got. They don't come safer than me. He tells me this 2 days later. I'm taking him to the hospital because he broke his foot. I said, Doug, how'd you break your foot? Oh, I jumped off the equipment. Well, how are you supposed to get on and off the equipment? You're supposed to use a 3-point stance. You know, you're supposed to have 3 points of contact. 2 feet, 1 hand, 2 hands, 1 foot, so you're going up and down safely. Well, he jumped off the loader, off the platform on the loader, and landed on the asphalt and broke his foot. Well, Doug, how are you the safest operator I have if you're breaking your foot? Well, I do that all the time. That's how I always get on and off. Well, you bet your foot and your life on luck. That's what he did. You guys can't bet your life on luck. You can't bet your employees' lives on luck. So we're going to be taking a look at what we can do so we're not betting our lives on luck. So you guys say, hey, Deedee, well, what's OSHA's mission? What's the big deal about OSHA? OSHA says, and this is directly from the OSHA Act. You'll hear the 5A1 clause. Have you ever heard of 5A1? You'll always hear this from people who will say, OSHA will cite you under 5A1. The general duty clause. Have you heard it called that? Okay, this is the general duty clause. It's to furnish, each employer must furnish to his or her employees a place of employment which is free of recognized hazards that is causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to his or her employees. We have the duty as employers to keep our employees recognized from serious harm or physical injury that is recognized. It does not say that you have to recognize the hazard. Somebody has to recognize the hazard. And under OSHA, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. You are supposed to know. There are all kinds of places you can go to find out, and it's your job to find out. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, is to help you guys have the tools, what you guys may need, to find out what you need to do your jobs. Okay? So I said OSHA used to say that you needed a safety program. Okay? They have since changed their minds on this, and this was in the last year. They want you to have a system. Why? Because a program is an order of list. It's an ordered list of events to take place. So, like baking a cake. First, you turn on the oven, set it to 350. Then you cream the butter and sugar together. And then you add the vanilla, and then you add an egg, and you cream that together. And in a separate bowl, you shift together your flour, your sugar, or your flour and your baking soda and whatever else, your chocolate, and make a beautiful chocolate cake. You put it in the oven, you bake it for this long. This is not the way you do safety. This is not the way you guys run your business. You can't say on a daily basis, today, this is what you do on a daily basis. You come in, you set down your stuff, you fix your cup of coffee, come sit down at your desk, turn on your computer, and at this time you will be doing this. At this time you will be doing that. That's not the way things work. This is a real world where everything changes on a constant basis. Every morning I send my boss an email saying, today I will be here doing this. I can say probably 2% of the time those emails are accurate because I'm having to run somewhere else. Something else happened, something else popped up. Oh, hey, we just got these new cranes in and I need you to come over and take a look at them. We got these rubber-tired gantry cranes. Can you come take a look at them? We're setting those up today. Hey, we're setting beams today across the Arkansas River. Can you come and take a look at that? Hey, we're pulling down the I-40 bridge, the old I-40 crosstown. Can you come take a look at that? You know, I need to be responsive to my guys, and sometimes their requests that say, hey, I need you over here, is more important than what I plan to do that day. You know, if I just plan to sit in my office and do paperwork can wait. I do that on my own time. I come in on Saturdays and do my paperwork because my Monday through Friday time depends on what my guys need. If they're working at, well, this weekend we shut down Highway 169 through Tulsa, shut down all 5 lanes. It's not a really great idea, but we shut it down from 9 o'clock at night until noon Sunday morning, 9 o'clock Saturday night until noon Sunday morning. I was out there with them. I answer my phone 24/7, 365. Even when I'm in the line for the Matterhorn at Disneyland, I'm answering my phone. It's kind of hard when I'm going down the ride because I might be screaming a little bit, but when I get off, I call them back. So, a system is an organized sense of interrelated ideas and principles. So, we want everybody working together. We want the ideas to work together. We want this to be a fluid and dynamic system. We want it to be organic and changing. You don't just write a program for your company and say, that's it, I'll never have to look at it again. If you guys are looking at your company financials, you don't just do it in 2012 and then 2015 say, well, what I did in 2012 is still going to stay the same in 2015. You have to look at it every year. Sometimes you have to look at week by week or month by month. but you always have to look at them. You always have to evaluate, and you always have to make sure you're training. You have to have the most current and up-to-date information, and you need to make sure you are conveying that information in the most concise and relevant way you can. I have employees on my job who have master's degrees, and I have people on my jobs who are illiterate. I never do training and say, can you read this to me, because I don't know who in the room can read. I read that to them. If I'm doing a quiz, I never say, do the quiz. I always say we're going to do it together. Because a lot of people panic. They'll have test anxiety, and they're like, oh man, I can't do this. So I want to make it as comfortable as possible and easy as possible for my employees, because I want this to be a comfortable atmosphere. I want it comfortable for you. If you guys have questions or stories, please tell me. You guys are, by hour 3, you guys are going to be really tired of listening to me talk. So go ahead and ask a story. Ask me. I will be happy to tell you. If I don't know the answer, I will look it up. I will get back to you. Give me your contact information. I'll give you mine. If you guys have any questions for me, 2 weeks from now, you can pick up the phone and call me, and I'll be happy to answer it for you if I can. Or I will give you the resources that you need. This is an open book world. I don't expect you guys to remember or memorize anything I tell you, just as long as you know where to go to get the information. I got my master's degree at OU. I never could understand why they'd say, oh, well, you need to come in without any books or anything and take the test. It's an open book world. I don't expect anybody to remember, how to do Pythagoras' theorem, or what that is, or, it's something you look up. I carry my OSHA CFR with me for construction, because I can't guarantee I will always have access to the internet. I have that in my car, because if I'm down in Idabel or in Lawton and I don't have or Red Oak, gosh, they don't even have cell phone service in Red Oak. I have my CFR if I need to look something up. These are really easy to get. You write to OSHA, call OSHA, and they'll be happy to send you one. Free, which is even more beautiful. We like free. Tell them what you need, and they'll send it to you. I have both the 1910, which is general industry, and 1926, which is construction. Oh, it's in your books. You guys don't need to take notes unless you want to, but it's in your books. You guys have this. It's available. I even gave you the OSHA website, so you can go on the OSHA website and get what you need. And I'm going to show you guys what you need to do and how to navigate the OSHA website, because sometimes it gets a little confusing. But there's handy little tricks on the OSHA website. I was introducing, I had MSHA training. That's the Mine Safety and Health Administration. The MSHA website is horrible. The MSHA CFR is horrible. Oh, CFR stands for Code of Federal Regulations. MSHA is horrible. And if you think OSHA's bad, MSHA's on at your mine site every 3 months. And they are mandated to find 3 citable citations, and you will be cited. You can guarantee yourself 3 citations every time they come. When OSHA's on the job, they will only cite if they find a visible violation. Okay? I want to show you guys a quick video. And this is what it feels like sometimes when you're in safety or when you're running a business.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here. If you look at his face, he's just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories. I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
Doesn't this make you feel like you're herding cats is what you do when you manage people? This is what I feel like when I'm doing my safety stuff. I feel like I am herding cats. So, one of the first things we look at when we talk about a health and management system, when I'm herding my cats, is how am I going to manage my management and my employee involvement? If I don't have management involvement, I have nothing. If my CEO and my human resources director and my vice president of operations and my foremen and superintendents are not on board, I have nothing. If you as owners of your companies or safety people of your companies or financial directors of your companies or people from ODOT, if you guys are not on board with safety, you got nothing. If I go out on a job and ODOT does not care what kind of safety program I have and what kind of safety I manage and administer to my employees, I have nothing. And it matters. And I actually have a question. Why don't ODOT inspectors have to wear hard hats? You guys may not know that, but I have a question about that. Because they can't answer me, and they say, well, I don't have to, and I don't know why. I know that ODOT doesn't fall under OSHA. They're under POSH, but you would think that their head's just as susceptible to a bump on the head as mine is.
Not necessarily.
Well, maybe not. I wear a very cool pink hard hat, by the way, so if you're ever on a construction job and you're driving by and you see a bunch of Sherwood orange trucks and you see the pink hard hat, that's me. It really is. I wear my pink hard hat all the time. So, when you're talking about your program, first you have to have a mission statement. What is your safety philosophy? Do you guys have one? Come on, you don't want to hear me talk. I want to hear you guys talk. Do you guys have a safety philosophy? What is your safety philosophy?
No accidents, no injured people, no death.
Okay. Do you know who is responsible for doing what within your safety for safety at your company?
Well, the way we try to do is we get safety meetings.
Okay.
And we have people participate with their own experiences. So that way it's going to sink in their head what's safe.
Great.
So we try to do once a month or twice or once every 2 months.
Okay.
So we don't do real, we don't get involved into construction. We are quality control and quality assurance.
Okay.
Civil work, so.
Perfect. Have you ever had one of those meetings where you just talk and you're trying to get some information across and you can swear you hear the crickets in the background and everybody's eyes glaze over and you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Or, oh God, here we go, another safety meeting. Oh man.
Well, people take things for granted. They think they know everything and they think they are the safest.
Exactly right. I'll have people tell me, I've been doing this for 30 years. What can you teach me? You can't teach me how to do this. You're right. I can't teach you how to operate equipment. Oh, good God, you don't want me to teach anybody to operate equipment. But I can tell you how to do it safely. When I first started at Sherwood, I knew zero about safety. This was me. You know that big yellow thingy over there? Oh, you mean a bulldozer? Yeah, that big yellow thingy over there. Yeah, the guy's not wearing a seatbelt, the windshield's cracked, and there's no backup alarm. Oh. You do know something about safety. I know what I'm supposed to look for, and I know what's safe. How many of you guys have kids or grandkids? Have you ever told them, don't touch that, that's hot? Guess what? You're a safety person. Congratulations. Safety's really not that hard. If it doesn't look safe, it's not. You know, if you're driving down I-40 and you see somebody driving at 120 miles an hour whipping in and out of traffic, you're thinking, man, that guy's an idiot. You instinctively know that's not safe. You instinctively became a safety person. Congratulations. You do a great job. Yes, sir.
Quick question. We'll be driving, my wife and I see a crazy guy or gal driving 100 miles an hour. My first reaction, I'll honk to them. And I'll say, don't you do that, they might shoot you. Who's right, you or I?
I think you are. Well, I would say, first let me say, it depends on where you're at.
Leave them alone. They shoot you.
It depends on where you're at and what kind of horn.
The highway.
I know, but you have those people who do that aggressive horn. Or meep meep. You know, there's a difference between a, hey, wake up, meep meep horn, and then the aggressive, hey, you're a schmo, get out of my way. You know, you have those. We all have a touch of road rage and a road aggression. We all have that. You know, I had a job once where my biggest safety concern was drive-by shootings. I probably wouldn't honk in that area. I had loader buckets strategically set around the job, so in the afternoon when we had our 3 p.m. drive-by shooting, and swear to God, we could time it at 3 p.m. because that's usually when school was out at 2:30, and it was about that time. Our guys would all get behind the loader bucket so they wouldn't be shot. OSHA says I have to protect my guys from recognized hazards. That's a recognized hazard. I can't have everybody working in 115-degree weather with a flak jacket on. You know, I can't get everybody, you know, battle fatigues and bulletproof vest, but that's a big concern. It's a sad state of affairs of America in our cities, but that's what you have. You can listen to Tulsa radio, Muskogee radio, you can listen to Oklahoma City radio, and you always hear, or even TV. But I'm in my car most of the time, so I always listen to the radio, but you always can hear about somebody getting shot. Yesterday, Stillwater High School. A boy committed suicide. He could have just as easily turned that gun on somebody else. It's sad, but it's the truth. So, you got to always think, what can you do? And what are your safety concerns? And what is your policy statement going to be? It has to be clear and concise. It has to have management involvement. It has to have visible leadership. How many of you guys go onto your job and you're telling your guys they have to wear their safety vests? Well, we'll go ahead and get all duded up so you guys can see. All right, I have to have my safety vest on. So I got my safety vest. Hey, you got to wear your dust mask because you're working in a dusty area. So I have my dust mask on. We're going to pretend I pretend I have my safety glasses on. I thought I had my glasses, so go figure. I got my safety glasses. We're good. I need my safety glasses. Got my safety glasses on. Hey, I need some gloves, but what kind? Do I need high-vis tips? Or do I need orange rubber grips? We don't know yet. We may not even need gloves yet. And then I got my earplugs, okay? So here I am. And what's your name, ma'am? Hi, May. So May's my supervisor, and she comes out on the job, and she comes to talk to me, and she comes exactly dressed as she is. Is that visible leadership if she is not demonstrating to me what she needs to do? It's in my car. That's visible leadership. You guys got to demonstrate that you mean business when you come on the job. If I'm saying you have to wear these red gloves, then you better have red gloves on when you come and talk to me. And if you're wondering why I have high-vis tips, because people forget where their hands are. And I was having a lot of hand injuries. These gloves here are about 5 cents more than a regular pair of leather gloves, and my hand injuries went down to 0. So 5 cents is worth it. I have to have visible leadership. If you guys are going to say this is what you're going to do, then you guys got to demonstrate this is what you're going to do. If I tell my guys, you guys have to wear a safety vest, then I have to be wearing one when I get out of my car. If I say I have to have my hard hat on, I have to wear my hard hat. I have 2 pairs of glasses, or I have my prescription safety glasses because I don't wear my contacts all the time. So I have to change out of my regular glasses and put my safety glasses on. That has fixed side shields, or I have to wear a pair of safety glasses that they wear over my contacts. And first of all, I have to think about where I'm going that day because there's certain areas I go that I can't wear contacts on the job because of the stuff they're exposed to. If you're working in an area, so if I go to I-40, those beams were painted with lead paint many years ago. They were painted with lead paint. We had to ship them off, sand them off, put a sealant on it so we can load them up and take them to the counties across Oklahoma. When I go to that job, because it has lead on the job, I cannot wear my contacts. I have to wear my glasses, safety glasses, or my safety glasses, my glasses, or I have to wear my glasses and goggles. I have to think about where I'm going. Same token, if I'm going to a railroad job, I could not go with this shirt on today. There's 3 of us in here who couldn't go to a railroad job. Our gentleman back there who's doing the visual part or the audio part, our gentleman in the back, you can't wear red on a railroad job. If you guys are wondering why, red is a signal to an engineer that there's an emergency and you better stop. Can't wear red. I don't want to stop a train for 10 hours because of the choice of clothing that day. That's not something I want. You got to think about what you're doing and where you're going. And so as a safety manager, I have to set a visible example. I have to lead by example. You guys have got to lead by example. If I'm saying these are the kind of shoes I wear, I'm not going out on the job with these shoes. I always carry a pair of steel-toed boots in my car. Because Tuesday when I go to workers' comp court, if I have to leave, I have to be able to switch out of my heels and put on my boots. Doesn't look very good, but hey, it's not a fashion statement. Employee involvement. You got to get your employees involved. How do they report accidents to you, or near misses or safety concerns? Do they feel comfortable calling you up and saying, hey, I got a safety concern?
Depends on the employee and depends on the day.
Well, exactly. Well, some days I'm not very nice either. So, but you got to make it easy for them to contact you. You know, maybe you have an email that they can shoot you an email. Maybe they're more comfortable sending you a text message. Maybe they're not comfortable talking to you during work hours and they would rather call you at 7 o'clock at night. You have to make yourself accessible so they can be involved. And they have to be involved in making decisions. One of the simple decisions that I had my employees involved with was selecting their safety glasses. You bring out a couple pair. Guys, try these. Tell me what you want, what kind you like. They picked the Nemesis because they think it's cool. If they think it's cool and they're going to wear it, then they're most likely going to wear their safety glasses and they're going to protect your eyes. You got to think about that. How do you get them involved? You know, we have, for fall protection, we have body harnesses. They tell me, we like this brand better than this brand. The same price, okay, I'll go with this one. They tell me, we like these hard hats better than these hard hats. They do the same thing. They both cover the ANSI standard, or ANSI, American National Safety Institute. If you guys are wondering, they're the ones who test and approve safety glasses and harnesses and earplugs and all of that, and then OSHA adopts it. Get your guys involved. Get your employees involved. If you have people working in the office and they're complaining about their back or arms or neck pain, check out their seats. What kind of chairs do you have? You guys have some really good chairs today to be sitting in. You know, you've been to those places where you have these hard plastic or metal chairs where you're kind of fidgeting because you start hurting and you can't start sliding down. And I don't have very long legs, so I have those chairs where my feet dangle, and so I'm trying to slide down to get some stress off my legs, and then I'm sneaking back up because then my upper back starts hurting, and you're sitting there all day going, oh. Well, think about that if you're sitting there all day at a keyboard and someone starts complaining about, oh, my arms hurt or my back hurts. Start looking at how they're sitting or what kind of chair they're in. Get their involvement. Maybe you need to change their chair. Maybe you need to get a shoebox to put under their feet to prop them up so they're more comfortable. Maybe you just need to adjust their computer so that they're at a more even eye length so their eyes don't get fatigued. Maybe you need to look at the way their keyboard is so it's more at a neutral position and a natural position so you don't get the fatigue in your shoulder. But start talking to them and get their involvement and ask them, what can you do? And I don't pretend to know everything about safety. I don't. I'd like to think I did, but I don't. If someone comes up with me and says, hey, I got an idea about this process, listen to them. See if it works. Don't just say, nope, no, I know best. I don't know best. I never pretend to know how to build a road or a bridge, a building. Heck, I can't even put up a darn curtain rod. It takes me 8 hours. I am not handy. I'm the least handy person you will ever meet. I'll never tell anybody how to do that. I can tell them how to do it safely. So if they come up and say, hey, we got this process, this is the way we do it, but we think we can do it this way better and safer, listen to them. Try it out, see if it'll work. You have to have accountability. If I come in, or you guys come in and you're like, Deedee, I talk to you again. I want to talk to you again about wearing your hard hat. You're not wearing your hard hat. Where is it? Oh, it's in my car. Well, it needs to be on your head. All right. So a week later, you come in and say, Deedee, we talked to you last week about your hard hat. Where's your hard hat? Oh, it's in my car. Go get it, put it on your head. Deedee, where's your hard hat? If you guys keep talking to me about my hard hat or my boots or my safety glasses or whatever safety concern you have over and over and over again, and all you say is, well, I talked to her about it. Well, and say 6 months down the road, someone gets, is working at height. I don't have my hard hat on, and they drop a metal 12-pound sledgehammer on my head. Well, now I have a head injury. You guys have a workers' comp case on your hands. Depending on how badly I'm hurt, I can come back and say, gosh, OSHA may come out and say, hey, you guys got a really bad injury on your hands. We heard about it on the news. Or I was driving by when I saw the sledgehammer fall. They're going to come out and say, why wasn't she wearing her hard hat? And why weren't you guys making her wear her hard hat? And you can say, well, we told her. We told her. Okay, when did you tell her? Oh, well, last week. Well, do you have anything documenting that you told her last week? No. Well, then you didn't tell me. You guys have to make sure I'm accountable. Maybe you need to write me up and show that, yes, we're taking safety seriously. I may have to write her up and say, Deedee, on this day I talked to you about your hard hat. You didn't have it on. I'll give you one. This is your verbal warning. But you have to have a written verbal warning. If you say you did it, if you don't have it documented, you didn't do it.
Even if you do verbal warnings, you can document later.
Yes.
One letter say, okay, this is the third time that I'm warning you. But best way to do it is
Right then.
no, you throw him out from the job site.
Well, but you also have to document that you threw him out off the job site.
But then you have the warning.
As long as you have it documented. You got to have it documented. I'm telling you, OSHA wants the documentation. They're going to look for it and say, where's your documentation? If it's not documented, it didn't get done.
And that document is got to be signed for the employee.
The employee doesn't have to sign it. You can say, hey, Deedee, would you sign it? And I can say, I'm not signing that. You just say she refused. You can't discipline me for it, but you can say, Deedee refused. Yes, ma'am.
So if she refuses something is to happen, would you still be held accountable?
As long as I have documentation and proving that I am taking firm action and upholding my safety policy, I will not be held accountable, but I have to be able to give proof.
Okay, so even if she doesn't sign it, you still did your
Yeah, as long as you refuse to sign, and you can prove that this is, and you get, you can say, here's a copy of what I'm giving you, so you have that.
Okay.
But you have to make sure you are following through with what your safety policy says. Yes, sir.
Why should we assume that the employee doesn't know what's good for them? They have to be told where you are. I mean, why should I be told to wear my hard hat? Don't I have sense enough to be responsible
Well,
to wear my hard hat without somebody pushing me?
I'm so glad you asked this. Yes, sir.
Could you repeat the question, because you're the only one with the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
He asked, a gentleman back here asked, why do I have to assume somebody's wearing the hard hat? Can I just say that, why do I have to tell them? Why do they have to be told? And the answer to that is because, and you'll hear common sense. Well, just common sense. Common sense is not so common. Common sense is based on your experiences and what you've experienced in life. And OSHA says, it's written in their PPE, we'll get to that later on, but it's written that you have to train them. And I have to train you on how to put on safety glasses. You would think that's easy. But I have to train you. Oh, where did they go? I have to train you. These are your safety glasses. We're going to do a training session real quick, okay? Here are your safety glasses. These are yours. They're meant to protect your eyes. These say ANSI, and I don't have my glasses on, so yeah. Someone read this? You have glasses on. What does that say right there? Do you see it stamped?
KCZ87 plus S.
Okay, Z87, okay? If you go to ANSI, and ANSI standards are expensive, but if you went to an ANSI standard and you took up Z87, it'd pull up what your safety glasses have to be made of, okay? That's what this is, that's what the Z87 means. OSHA says that we have to wear ANSI approved Z87 safety glasses. So every safety glass you wear has to have that stamped, okay? I have to show you, these are your safety glasses. This is how you put them on. You have to show them how to don them. This is how you put them on, okay? This is how you doff them, how to take them off. You do not leave them on your dash in the sun. You do not wear them on your head, on your hard hat. They're meant to protect your eyes. You can chew with false teeth. You can hear with a hearing aid, but you cannot see out of a glass eye, so we protect our eyes. Okay? I have to show you, and how do you clean these? You get an approved cleaning cloth and you clean it. You don't just get something that you just been wiping off a bunch of sawdust with and wipe them off. I have to get approved cleaners, and I provide them. I actually have them in my car with my hard hat. So that's where that is. It's with my hard hat. I have to show you how to do this because I can't assume that you know how to put these on. You know what they say about assume makes a out of you and me. So we don't ever make the assumption. I have to make sure I train you. I document that I trained you. I trained you today, September 27th, at Francis Tuttle how to put your safety glasses on. And you guys have just been trained on how to put safety glasses on and how to care for them. I have to train you on everything because I can't assume.
Deedee,
Yes.
someone told me once, whenever if you have an employee that refuses to sign something, write refuse to sign and then ask them to initial it.
Yeah. Well, you know they will.
And they will. They will initial that they refuse to sign or they wouldn't sign a document.
Isn't that crazy?
Shows that they've seen it.
Yeah, if you can write what the question was or comment was, is that if someone says, I refuse to sign something, you write refuse to sign and ask them to initial it, and they will. People do the silliest things. I do the silliest things. You will always hear me. You know, when I'm doing training, I always make me the idiot on the job, and it's usually dumb Deedee. You know, you guys are the heroes and I'm dumb Deedee. So if you're gonna hear that a lot today. Dumb Deedee did this, so that's me. Hi. And you guys are the heroes, okay? I never want to make somebody feel uncomfortable when I'm doing training or I'm talking to them on the job or doing a correction on the job. You know, if I have to correct you, like, hey, where's your safety glasses, and they're sitting on top of your hard hat, that's something we're gonna do it with respect. They're professional. You're professional. They can get all up and hot and bothered and yelling at you, but you're still the professional. And they don't know you that well. You don't invite them home for dinner. Their opinions really don't matter if they're having a bad day and they're angry, as long as they're safe and they go home in one piece. I have people who, the public call me and say, hey, a rock came off your truck and broke my windshield. Where'd it come from? Well, it fell, they hit a rock on the road and it bunched up and hit my windshield. Just in case you guys don't know, that's called a road hazard. We're not responsible for road hazards. If you're driving your personal vehicle and a rock comes off, you're not responsible for it. Now, if it comes off the top of my truck and I'm not securing my load, then I'm responsible for it. People get very angry with you and you say, I'm sorry, sir, that's a road hazard. I'm not responsible for that. Sorry, ma'am. They get really angry and they start questioning your parentage and, what kind of human being you are. And maybe if you're not a human being, they start questioning you that. You don't get angry. You're the professional. You're calm. They don't know you. You're not going to invite them to dinner, so it really doesn't matter. Just like when you're correcting an employee. Yesterday, I had to correct an employee about the way they were wearing their body harness. When you're working at a height, in general industry, 4 feet, at construction, 6 feet, I don't know why they think general industry people need to be protected 2 feet before we are, but that's the way it is. You have to wear your body harness, and it has to have contact points. You have the contact points here at your chest, one here, and then you have it across, and some of them have a cross belt, another belt down here, and then you have one in your leg. You have 2 at your legs. Well, you have to have no more than 2 finger widths under your leg, your thigh straps. And you'll see them walking around with it just hanging around, and you can completely pull it off. Well, if they fall, they're gonna fall out of their harness because it's too loose. So you have to do spot corrections and spot training and saying, okay, we're gonna make sure that you're doing it. And that's part of me being visible. It's a part of making sure there's employee involvement and they understand. And I always take that back to their foreman and say, I just talked to so-and-so about this. This is how we did it. And then I say, and I need you to reinforce it. And I make sure that foreman reinforces it right then. Not 10 minutes from now, not tomorrow, but right then, to make sure that you have repetitive reinforcement. It's just like a child. Don't touch that, it's hot. Don't touch that, that's hot. Don't touch that, that's hot. You keep doing the repetitive reinforcement so they get it. Positive repetitive reinforcement. So it's there and they get that we have employee involvement, we have management involvement, and I'm making sure that I'm holding my foreman accountable and my employees accountable, and I'm being accountable for taking care of that. I could have said, oh, I'll come back and talk to him later. But how would I have felt if someone would have fell out of that harness? And when I'm doing fall protection training, I show them graphic photos of what happens, because I can sit and talk to you guys about it, but if I show you a picture, ooh, does that get across? Especially if they're my male employees. If you guys just consider for a minute, if you fall in a harness and you have these wide straps that are sharp and you fall straight down, where are those straps gonna go? It's gonna go into a very uncomfortable spot, and it can do uncomfortable things to you. You know, and I can show them the picture of somebody who had their business eviscerated. That means more than me talking about it. And they're like, oh, no. And everybody I've showed that picture to, every single one of them have tight leg straps, 2 finger widths. Every single one of them. Can't figure out why, but that's what I got, 2 finger widths. And it matters. I show videos. Do you know, if you guys ever want any really good safety videos that are free, just go on to the Canada's Department of Safety. They have these safety videos that are so graphic and crazy. You're just like, oh my gosh. You don't see stuff like that in America, but they actually show that on TV. That's one of their commercials. And I could show you, but they're graphic and you guys may not want to see them. But, you know, I always tell them, this is what I got. You know, I was asked the other day what kind of photos I have on my iPhone. Do you take pictures? I take pictures of my dogs, and I take pictures of accidents. That's what I take on my cell phone. If people found my cell phone and they went through, they'd like, oh my God, what kind of person owns this phone? There are severed hands, lacerated fingers, there's wrecked mixer trucks. I got all kinds of stuff on here. I was actually driving on the Creek Turnpike yesterday, and somebody was working on a tower, and they had a crane with a man basket suspended from the crane with 30-mile-an-hour winds, and the crane basket was doing this. So I took a video of it because I can use it for training later. This is not what you do. I love taking pictures from other people's job sites because I can use it and say, this is not what we can do. This is an example of what not to do. And that way I can keep accountability. We want to do an annual review. Every year, I review our safety policy and our programs and our system to see where the arrows, where we're missing something and what we need to do to fix it. Sorry, cell phone going off. You have to make sure that I'm addressing any issues. If there's anything new coming up, OSHA always comes up with emphasis programs. The one that we've been under for the last 2 years is a heat stress emphasis program. And they can cite you under those emphasis programs. So you got to think about, what are the emphasis programs? So heat stress. If the National Weather Service issues a heat advisory, then you fall under this program, this emphasis program. And that means you have to provide your employees with lots of water. You have to have cooling stations set up. Gatorade, you have to provide some kind of electrolyte replacement substance. You can put the pills out, you can give them Squincher, you can give them Gatorade, you can give them Powerade, whatever you want to give them, but you have to have some kind of electrolyte replacement. You have to have fans available. You have to train everybody what to do when there's a heat advisory. You know, because you'll hear people say, oh, he's such a sissy, or she's such a sissy. But it's a medical emergency. And if someone starts having some heat stress, you got to take advantage and you got to take care of it. Another one that's going on is silica. There's a huge silica push. Silica comes if you're working a lot with concrete or sand. Silica is a mineral that's out, but when you breathe it down, it gets down into the deep parts of your lungs, and it has these little hooks. And it hooks into your alveoli, which is the little pouches in the bottom of your lungs that exchange air. And they start hooking in, and it starts damaging those alveoli. So in 40 years, 40 years from now, if I've been around a lot of silica, I start getting a disease called silicosis. Silicosis is really bad because I can't breathe. It forms a form of cancer. And I can say, well, gosh, how did I get silicosis? Well, I can go back and say, gosh, in 2012, I was working for Sherwood, and we were doing a lot of grinding on asphalt and concrete, and we never had to wear respirators. We didn't have a respirator protection program. I can come back to Sherwood 30 or 40 years from now, and now Sherwood's on the hook for my workers' comp injury, my industrial occupational illness. So you have to know what's going on. You used to hear about asbestos. Asbestos was great for brakes. It was great for fire prevention. If you had brakes, you had these pads of asbestos that would go on your brakes because they're very heat resistant. Well, mechanics would have to break the asbestos pads off. And this was like in the 50s and 60s, they were breaking the asbestos pads off. Well, in the 1980s, 1990s, people were coming down with a disease called mesothelioma, which is a disease you get from asbestos, which is also another naturally occurring mineral. Did some great things, but it can make you very sick. Another one, lead. You guys hear about lead. Little kids go around and they eat, if they're living in a poor housing area and they're not getting the nutrients they need, they'll start eating paint flakes. Those paint flakes have lead in them. If you have little children who live in impoverished areas, and if they're not getting enough nutrients, the nutrients that they need, they'll start eating paint flakes because there's a nutrient, there's something that they're craving, and so they'll start eating paint flakes. If they eat enough, it will cause brain damage for those children. That's why lead is such an issue. That's why lead is such an issue for our workers, because it can start messing with your brain. I don't want something I dealt with at work to mess with my brain later, or to mess with my lungs later, or to mess with my hearing or my eyesight. And these are the things we have to look at. And this is the things I have to go back and I have to do my annual review. I always have to go back and look and say, okay, did we address this? No. What jobs do I have coming up? You work for direct traffic, is that right? Advanced work zone. But still, you put up the barriers and the barricades. You're always looking to see what does the Federal Highway Workers Administration say we'll have to do this year, right? You're thinking, okay, are they going to change the vests? And it wasn't too long ago where they came up, what was it, 4 years ago, I guess, where they said everybody has to start wearing a Class 2 or Class 3 vest. That's what I had on earlier, was a Class 2 vest. Before that, my employees is just the contractor never had to wear a safety vest, but I do now. And every employee who works on a federal aid highway has to wear a safety vest. And they have to be a particular kind. They have to have the very wide straps. They have to be highly visible, and they have to be either fluorescent orange or fluorescent lime. This is what they have to be. I have other jobs where they say you have to have an orange vest. If I work on a Corps of Engineer job or a railroad job, I have to have an orange vest. But every year things change and I have to evaluate and make sure I'm adopting the latest standards. Just a year ago, 2 years ago now, the new crane standard came out, subpart CC. That changed a whole bunch of the things we do when we operate cranes and what we have to do when we're operating them. Our operators now have to be certified. To certify an employee, it costs us $5,000 per employee to certify for cranes. But if they were employed by us before December 31st, 2011, I have to pay for their certification. And that gets expensive. I have a lot of crane operators I had to certify. If you're doing any signaling, crane signal training, I have to make sure you're qualified to do that. I have to train you on signals. You know, you'll see a lot of people, if you guys are in construction, you'll see people do this. What does this usually mean? Stop, right? That's not what that means. This means nothing. This means nothing in OSHA. Stop is this. This is stop in OSHA. This means nothing. No, actually, this doesn't mean anything in OSHA either. This is just, hey. This is just, hey, how are you doing? Some people do this, hold. But that doesn't mean anything either. Now, OSHA does say if we all come together as a group, because we're all working on the same job, and we say this is going to be stop, and I post this as stop and make sure everybody knows this is stop, I can use that signal. But if dumb Deedee walks in and she doesn't know it's stop, and you do this, and I'm like, hey, buddy, how you doing? I don't know what that means. I don't know you're telling me to stop. I thought you were like, hey, yeah, solidarity, you know. That's what I think that means. I don't know that means stop. I have to make sure you're training me that this means stop. Or this means stop. Or this means stop. You know, again, dumb Deedee goes like, hey, yeah, how you doing? I don't know what that means. You got to tell me this is what that means. You know, I can see you doing this, and I can think you're doing the YMCA. I don't know what that means. You got to tell me what that means. Because again, we never assume people have common sense.
But this means stop if you're doing traffic control for a flagman with the sign.
Yes, but that is not in cranes. And that you have to train somebody. If you're having a flagman, you have to train them. If you have a flagman, do you know you have to have them certified? You have to train them before they go out there and flag traffic. And I can't tell you how many people who will say, gosh, that's such an easy job. They're just out there standing all day. That is one of the hardest jobs I've ever done, was flagging traffic. You're standing there. You got people who are ticked off. How dare you tell me I can't go through? Do you know where I have to be? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? You hear that all the time. Do you know who I am? I don't know who you are.
And I really don't care.
Pretty much, I really don't care. But you'll hear, I get this a lot. I'm the vice president of a bank, or I'm married to the vice president of the bank. Well, congratulations. My boss is the president of my company. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter to them. You hear a lot of people who are complaining about our roads and bridges. Oh, our roads and bridges suck. We got to fix them. But you get out there to fix them, and then how dare you slow me down? Who do you think you are? I have had people throw bottles of urine at us and throw rotten apples at us or sandwiches or curse at us. And you're like, hey, man, you'll be happy once we're done. You know, you're inconvenienced for a certain amount of time, but once it's done, you're going to be really happy because the road's going to be so much better. That's what we do. What is the hazard? Not super. Okay, can I just tell you how high these guys are up? These guys are at 38 floors above the ground. 38 floors. And this guy is pretty daring to trust this guy to hold him. I don't want my face that near someone's bottom, though. I'm just saying. And I guess it's pretty hot if you're that dedicated fixing your air conditioner. How about that? What's the problem there? There are some electrical issues there, don't you think? How about that? What's your safety concern? Yeah. He's pretty dedicated. That is not an approved man lift. You can't put 2x4s on the fork. I mean, a piece of plywood on some forks and stand on it. Can't do that. Can't be down in a manhole when it's on fire either. But hey, we got a dedicated ladder there. Like, makes wide right turns, but here's this guy. Sometimes people spend more time to do it incorrectly and unsafely than it would have taken to do it safely in the first place. That's some pretty impressive scaffolding, but look at the time they took to do it incorrectly when they could have done it correctly in the first place. I wouldn't like my boat to sink. That bullet came out of that gun. I know we're talking about OSHA and safety at home, but let's talk about, or safety at work, but let's talk about safety at home. We still want you to come to work. Do you see this outrigger here? This one here? This outrigger is supposed to be out here. Look at how high they are, and their outrigger's there. That can turn over very quickly. This practice was outlawed in 1980. This picture was taken in 2003. We do not raid the crane balls. This is not good. I have bridge guys who've been building bridges for 30 years. They're like, yeah, I miss doing that. They're all nostalgic about this stuff. This truck was driving down the road. They're actually hauling these roof trusses, and it was moving down the road. That's not the way you haul these things. I need to get up high, so I'm going to stand on something on a forklift. This is not what this is approved for. You're never to allow it to stand on the forklift. But I don't have anybody to help me, so I'm going to put a string here and try to operate it. Now, once you get up, how do you get down? Fall down? Okay, fall protection 6 feet, so that's probably about 6 feet right there. And wait, was he counting on the garbage can to catch him?
That's what they do in the movies.
All right, and you always hear, "Oh, it'd just take a second. I was just going to take a second." Well, how long does it take you to get hurt? Well, just a second. That's crazy. Look at how high he is. They do this, and this is a picture from Ireland. This is how they do this. I don't want to get in there. That water is freezing cold. This pretty little outfit that he's wearing may keep him warm for about 5 minutes, but hey, the waves are going to beat you against the break there. And again, the bucket of an excavator is not an approved man lift. You always hear, don't fill up a gas can in the back of a truck. Your truck will catch on fire. Hey, can you guys have plastic gas cans on your job sites? No, you can't. You have to have an approved metal gas can, safety can. If anybody brings a plastic gas can on your job site, have them take it home. If you bring a plastic gas can on the job site, congratulations, you get to take it home. That's some pretty horrible excavation right there, right? Again, horrible scaffolding. Are you going to trust these little blocks here? What is that? And do you see the wheels of the scaffolding? It wasn't tall enough, so instead of getting another section to go up higher, we're going to just go ahead and do it wrong. And again, look at how much time they took to do it wrong when they could have got it and done it right in the first place in probably less time. Can you imagine working down here when they're building and putting the bricks up? He's tied up here, coming down here to a body belt. I want to tell you guys a story about body belts. In the 1950s, there were some students who were studying the effects of body belts. You know, this is before OSHA, this is before safety became cool, but they decided they were going to study the effects of body belts because, you know, if you're working up high, you probably need something to secure you. So they were like, how do we test body belts? It's not like we can just say, hey, we're going to test Deedee over here and we're going to put her in a body belt, we're going to drop her and see what happens. You can't do that. That's not ethical, right? Well, they're sitting in a cafe one day, and I'm sorry for fellow animal lovers, but they saw a stray dog, and they said, hey, let's test a dog. So they took a dog and put it in a body belt, took it up to a height, 10 feet, and dropped the dog and then looked to see what happened to the dog. 20 minutes later, the dog was dead. Well, when they did a necropsy, when they did an autopsy on the dog, they found that all of its internal organs had ruptured. And every single time they did it, because they could repeat the study over and over and over again, every single time they did it, they killed the dog. Okay? So again, I told you OSHA came into effect in 1970. At 1970, they know body belts kill. They know they kill. But they said, okay, well, we're going to approve body belt for fall protection. So people are working through the 1970s, through the 1980s with the body belt. People are falling and they're dying. They had a successful fall arrest. Hey, you didn't fall and break yourself. You didn't fall and get hurt. But the fact that you were wearing a body belt, because if you think when you fall and you have a body belt, you're going to jackknife. So all of the pressure of the belt plus your body weight plus gravity is going to be right here, and it's going to rupture all your internal organs, and people were dying. It wasn't until 1987 where Congress finally said, and OSHA finally said, you know, maybe we should outlaw body belts. No, it was 1993. I'm sorry, I got the date wrong. 1993. So for 40 plus years, they were allowing people to wear body belts when they knew it was a problem and people were dying. Body belts are not allowed. If someone brings a body belt on the job site, remove it, have them take it home. You don't want them there because people will use them instead of a body harness. With the body harness, it distributes the force of your fall across your body. You'll be bruised, you'll be sore, but you won't be dead. This was in Kansas City. Supposed to check the height of your bridge when you're carrying an oversized load. Again, yes?
What do you think when some people say the government have too many regulations? What do you say to them?
What do I say when someone tells me government has too many regulations? I say it depends on when it is. Sometimes I think, man, OSHA's rules are ridiculous. I think they go overboard. But I know what it used to be from history. When you start looking at the history and you start thinking of like some of the major disasters in this country, Texas City. You start thinking of the Exxon Valdez that spilled oil across, you know, up through Alaska. You start thinking back to the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire where 130 people burned to death because they couldn't get out because someone chained the door shut. You start thinking about, well, gosh, you know, nightclub fires. Where was it? What was the band that was there? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where the band, you know, the pyrotechnics, and they violated the fire rules. You start thinking about the sugar fire, the sugar explosion that happened in, where is it, Mississippi, about 2 years ago. You start thinking about the spill, the big oil spill where the drilling rig caught on fire in the Gulf. Yes. But you start thinking about those and you think, well, maybe there is a reason for it to be there. I think sometimes OSHA doesn't understand what's going on, and they're not there to be the friend of the employer. They're actually there to take care of the employee. So I think sometimes it's a little overboard, and I think the government is overboard sometimes, but I think that these regulations are there for a reason. And there are a lot of employers who don't care, and they wouldn't worry about safety if someone didn't make them. And again, you should be able to make a living and keep your life. So, sometimes I'm going, oh, man.
Politics, this business of government and regulations.
But you know what?
It's not really sincere, they're just politics.
Well, a lot of times, yeah, it's just politics. And you can actually look at the way OSHA governs you as an industry, your industries, and my industry, by who is in the White House, if it's a Republican or a Democrat. When a Republican's in the White House, it's a lot more laxed from OSHA. When a Democrat is in the White House, it's a lot more stringent. I don't know, is it the same way with ODOT? You can tell by who's in there, but I don't care who's in the White House. I don't care how OSHA's doing their job. I care about my people.
Safety.
I care about their safety. And sometimes I find it very sad that I care about their safety more than they do. I used to have a crew, and the crew doesn't work for us anymore, but I used to have a crew that would continually go into an excavation that was clearly unsafe, straight up and down, over 5 feet deep. They wouldn't shore it or bench it, or they would do nothing. And I'd talk to them and talk to them and talk to them. So you know what I finally did? I wrote a letter to their wives. And I said, "Dear Mrs. So-and-so," here, and sent a picture. "This is your husband working in a trench. I would like to have your permission to allow him to continue to doing that. I would like to have your permission that it's okay with you for them to risk their lives and risk your family's livelihood and risk your children's father, and make sure that's okay with you." Do you know I never had a problem with that crew again? It's not fair for them to do that. If you have dumb Deedee working on your crew, I can get every one of you guys hurt. And how selfish and arrogant is it of me to think that whatever I'm doing is more important than your lives and your health and safety? You guys have families to take care of. Okay, I have dogs to take care of. They need me. I can't be cavalier with my health and safety because I have people depending on me. You guys are depending on me to do my job. They depend on you to do your job. Your family depends on you to go home and take care of them. It matters. So, what do people tell me? It doesn't really matter what the government says. I'm going to comply. Oh, and let me tell you, if you're only complying with what's in this book, you're doing the bare minimum you have to do. This is the basics. That's the basics. You need to go above and beyond. Because if you're just doing what's in this book, you can get people hurt. Think about this. According to that book, under the ladder standard, you do not have to be tied off on a ladder. Okay? You don't have to be tied off unless it's a fixed ladder. One that is fixed and you can go up. Then you have to be tied off, or you have to have a cage around you. But if I have a mobile ladder, and for some reason I have a mobile ladder that reaches up 25 feet, I don't have to have that person tied off because they're on a ladder. That's ridiculous. Go above and beyond. Make sure your employee is safe. But if I have a 20-foot extension ladder, they don't have to be tied off. If I'm standing on something that's 6 feet or higher, I sure do. If I decided to stand on that, I don't know how tall that is. What do you think? That's about 3 feet? If I put a chair on it and stood on that, I have to be tied off. Okay, first of all, you guys are going to say, "Dumb Deedee, get off of there." But I'd have to be tied off. It's fall. Please don't burn your leaves so close to your house. Again, I want you to be safe at home too. Be careful where your power lines are. This vehicle struck the power line and it caught the vehicle on fire. Look up. Know where your power lines are. Truck drivers are notorious for striking power lines because they don't look up. And to help them, now we put big signs on the road that says overhead power lines with arrows pointing up. Because I never assume people know what they're doing. I never assume that they have common sense. We worry about housekeeping. That's some horrible housekeeping. First thing OSHA is going to do when they come to your job, whether it's your office, whether you're in working in a warehouse or maintenance or doing construction, first thing they're going to look at is your housekeeping. If you have horrible housekeeping, the rest of your safety probably is horrible too. Conveyors, whether they're a conveyor on an asphalt mill, if they're a conveyor on, well, your grocery line belt, they have to be guarded. If dumb Deedee was here, she could walk up and put her hand in there and pretty soon her arm's gone. Gotta watch the roadways. So you guys look at you guys be the safety people. Okay, so first we're talking about our system. We know that we have to have a concise plan written in a statement. We have to have management buy-in. We have to have employee buy-in and participation. We have to show that we're going to be doing what we're supposed to do. And we're going to have, I'm going to set the example for you, and I'm going to go ahead and review my program. We also have to do a work site analysis. I can't tell you how to work safe on any of your projects because I've never been there. I don't know what you do. Each one of my job sites is different, so I have to worry about the safety on each job site, and I have to evaluate it. And if we're doing our job right, and you guys want us to do our job right, our jobs are changing day by day, progressing to finish, so you guys have really good roads and bridges to drive on. So, we're going to first talk about, if you guys heard of unsafe acts and unsafe conditions, right? Well, let me define what these are. An unsafe act is something that a person chooses to do that's an unsavory behavior or decision that they make, unsatisfactory, prior to an event that can lead to an accident. It can lead to an unsafe event. It can lead to a near miss. But it's what I decide to do as a person, my behavior decides, hey, whatever I'm doing can lead to an accident. Example, texting and driving. If I choose to text and drive, that's an unsafe behavior, and if I rear end somebody, that's my fault. It's an unsafe act. My car's not faulty. The decision I made was faulty, and I chose to do an unsafe act. People do it all the time. You know, when the first seatbelt laws came out, how many people did you hear grumble, like, who's the government to tell me I have to wear a seatbelt? But it's been proven that seatbelts save lives. And I always hear people say, oh yeah, but I have a brother-in-law who has a friend, who has a buddy, who has a boss, who was in a wreck, and he would have died if he had a seatbelt on. And I choose to say BS to that. Bull. They probably would have been actually safer and probably wouldn't have got hurt as bad if they would have had their seatbelt on. They're just lucky. I'm not going to bet my life on luck, and I don't want you guys to either. And quite frankly, the state of Oklahoma and the U.S. government got tired of people betting their lives on luck, and people who are just assuming, hey, well, they should know to put their seatbelt on. They didn't, so we had to tell them. An unsafe condition is any unsatisfactory physical condition existing in the workplace environment immediately prior to an accident. So, unsafe condition. Having brakes on a piece of heavy equipment that do not work. That's an unsafe condition. If I'm getting ready to operate it, and I do my daily check, and I say this is an unsafe condition, I'm going to park it and take it out of service. That's an unsafe condition. Unsafe act comes in if I say, well, yeah, I know the brakes don't work, but I'm going to get on there and operate it anyway. That becomes an unsafe act. If you are asking people to work or make a pick with a crane and you have 50-mile-an-hour winds, those winds make it an unsafe condition. As soon as you say you're going to do it anyway, that becomes an unsafe act. Have you guys ever heard of Big Blue, the crane that collapsed? I'll have to show you guys the video. It's pretty cool. I mean, the crane collapse is cool, but not what came up with it. The crane operator, the original crane operator for this crane said, hey, I'm not gonna take this pick. It's not safe. The crane didn't have the capacity to make the lift that they were gonna pick. The wind was too high, and he says, it's not safe, I'm not gonna do it. Well, this other guy goes, hey, that guy's a sissy, I'll do it. He got on there, he starts to make the pick. The wind's too high, it puts too much pressure on the load, the crane collapses. It killed 7 people. You have to decide, if this is an unsafe condition, I'm not gonna do it. Don't follow through with an unsafe act that makes it even worse. So, we have our unsafe acts and our unsafe conditions. And when you're doing your work site analysis, you have to address both. You have those employees who are just bitter, angry, and negative. Everybody has those. It's what you do with them that matters. You always have those people like, yeah, Deedee, whatever. What do you know? You have to figure out how to get to them. How to get their buy-in, how do you get them to communicate, and how do you get them to do what you want them to do? Actually, that's what I got my master's degree in, is how to get people to do what you want them to do and make them think it's their idea. Swear to God, that's what my master's degree is. And it's the highfalutin title called Organizational Dynamics. But that's exactly what it is how do I convince you to do what I want you to do and make them think it's your idea? Kind of a brilliant degree. But seriously, that's what it's in. I have to make sure that I'm addressing those people. How do I get them to believe that what I'm asking them to do is their idea? And how do I once you get those people on board, you're golden. They're going to be your best employees because they're going to convince everybody else. When I'm doing a work site analysis or a job site analysis, I want to see, okay, so Megan, Patty. Hi, Patty. Okay, so you have Patty and you have dumb Deedee here, right? And dumb Deedee always takes shortcuts, always does bad things. You know, it was like she never has her hard hat on. She doesn't wear her safety boots. She never has her safety glasses. She has a really bad attitude. And Alma, right? Alma just joins our crew. Okay, you have Patty here. Patty follows the rules. She is very conscientious. She's not a cowboy. She has a great attitude. Who do you want to train Alma? Do you want Patty or Deedee? You want Patty, right? Why? Because Patty's not going to teach Alma the bad habits that Deedee has. Dumb Deedee's going to say, oh, yeah, Alma, you know, I know they say you have to do this, but this is easier. Let's just do this. I'm teaching her the bad ways to do it. Sooner or later, Victor's going to come along. Alma's being asked to train Victor. Well, she's training him the bad habits that she's already learned from me and whatever one she picked up. So pretty soon, Victor's just like, whatever, man. And then George comes along, and Victor trains George with Deedee's bad habits, Alma's bad habits, his bad habits. Pretty soon, you have a crew of bad habits. Bad stuff that's happening on the job. You want to say, so if Patty trains, then Patty's trained Alma with a great attitude, how to do the good things with the safe way, the procedures that you have set out. She's going to train Victor that way, and Victor's going to train George that way. Got to be careful with that, who you do have training and who you have as, you know, and you always have somebody who's like the informal leader on a crew. If that's me, you need to make sure you change my attitude and how you fix that. And sometimes that means inviting them to go work somewhere else. You know what? You're not happy here. I'm going to invite you to go work somewhere where you will be happy. Nobody's making you stay in the room. Nobody's making you come to work every day. If you're not happy here, Deedee, go work somewhere where you will be happy. You're not allowed to come to work and spread hate and discontent. We want you to work safe, we want you to work happy, and we want you to demonstrate that to people who are coming on. So if I have Alma and Victor and George, I want to make sure they are getting a good positive attitude, a good safe attitude, and I'm showing them the right way to do it. And you got to consider when you're doing your worksite analysis, if you're going to have somebody do some training, make sure that they're actually training it the way it needs to be done, in the safe way. If I'm asking you guys to train somebody on a piece of equipment, say I'm going to ask you to do it on a bench grinder, you guys better know how to train on a bench grinder. You better make sure that you know that you do a ring test on the grinding wheel. You guys don't know what a ring test is. You take the grinding wheel off, you put it on like a screwdriver, because it has a little hole in the middle, put it on there. Take something and ding it. If it goes ping, 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 it's good. If you go ping, ping, dud, there's a crack in that wheel, and it's a problem. It can explode and hurt somebody really bad. So I need to make sure I train you guys. You got to do the ring test on a grinding wheel. You want to make sure that you have the machine guard there and that you set it. The gap is actually set to where it needs to be. Otherwise, you can get really hurt. But if I have a bad attitude and I don't do that, then I'm training all of you guys to do that wrong. There's something called a job hazard analysis. So what that means is I'm going to say, okay, this is my job working on a grinding wheel. What are the steps that I have to do? First, what are my tools that I need to have? Safety glasses. I need to have maybe a face shield. Depending on what I'm doing, it may need hot work, so I may need a hot work permit. Maybe I need to have an apron covering my clothing. So you figure out what you need to do your job. You know, what are the items that you need additionally to do your job? Then you say, okay, now what are the steps to do this? Okay, first I take my Heath bar and I put it against my grinding wheel and I start grinding. I have to say, step by step, how do I grind my Heath bar down? You say, so here's the steps. What are the potential hazards? My Heath bar could crush, or it could be too short, so I can't really reach it. So maybe I need a stick to help push my milk duds to help push it further in. You know, I need a push stick, or I need something to do it better and safer. So I say, here are the hazards for these jobs, and these are the potential hazards, and these are the ways we're going to fix it. That's a job hazard analysis. You guys don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can go online and you can type in job hazard analysis, and there's thousands of them there. Thousands. They have blank sheets. They have ones that are already filled out for doing the same job. Borrow them. Just change the name on them. Don't reinvent the wheel. We don't do that in safety. We want to look at the people. When we're looking at a job hazard analysis, we look at people. Sometimes it's better to, instead of fitting the person to the job, you fit the job to the person. I actually am pretty well suited for my job. If you asked me to go out and run a dozer, I am not suited for that. I don't have the hand-eye coordination, and you got to work separately. You got your feet working separately from your hands. I am not capable of doing that. That's not something you ever want me to do. I'm not capable of working at heights because I'm deathly afraid of heights. My bridge crews, we've come to an understanding I will be on the ground with binoculars because they got really tired of rescuing me because I got panicked and couldn't move. You want to look at the materials. Maybe there's some materials that you can use that are safer and better than what you were using. Where do you store your materials? If you're storing your materials between two high-tension power lines, you might want to consider moving those because you have inductance off those high-power lines, and they can start electrifying and energizing your materials. So if you go out there on a humid day and you touch it, you can be shocked. People have been killed by that. Think of where you store your materials, what kind of materials you're using, and maybe think about moving them, how you store them, and what you're using. Equipment. Use the right equipment for the job. Just showed you a whole bunch of people using forklifts as a man lift or excavators as a man lift. Those are not approved man lifts. They're not approved to have people riding off the side say, hey, you know, I got to get on the other side of the job. Will you give me a ride? No. You don't do that. People get hurt and get killed every day because they're riding on equipment. Get the right tool for the job, even if it means walking 15 feet over to get it. I'm just going to tell you all kinds of stories about my company. I went out to a job site one day, and I pull up, and it was actually concrete mixers, and they were putting an additive into the drum of the mixer, right? They knew they were going to have to do this for weeks. For weeks, they knew they were have to do this. Well, when I pull up, what do you think they're using? They have somebody in a loader bucket dumping the stuff in. My head starts to do this. I walk in, and there's a vice president, a superintendent, well, 2 superintendents and a foreman. I proceed to ask, what the heck do you think you're doing? And I didn't say heck, I said H-E double hockey sticks. And they all looked at me like, uh-oh. And I was like, no, would one of you mind explaining to me why you think it's okay to put this man's life at risk? What the heck? Well, we just have to. No, you don't just have to. And you knew weeks ago what you were going to do. And not only that, but 20 feet away was an aerial approved man lift. You couldn't walk 20 feet to get the man lift over and get a harness on him and tie him off and do it the right way. That was so difficult because, gosh, we just needed to get it done. Unacceptable. Those guys, that job was not worth someone's life. It's not worth someone's life. So you want to make sure you have the right equipment for the job. If it means walking 20 feet to get the aerial lift, get the aerial lift. If you didn't have an aerial lift, you knew what you were going to be doing. They had it on the calendar for weeks. They could have rented one and got one up there. Make sure you have the right one. Please do not use a screwdriver as a pry bar. Seen that? I've done that. Or a butter knife as a screwdriver. Yeah, I've done that too. Don't use a high heel as a hammer. It just ruins your shoes. Yeah, I've done that. And God forbid, do not use a chair on wheels to change a light bulb. Yep, dumb Deedee's done that too. You know, you get up there and you're like, maybe this isn't a good idea. Well, I'm up here, I'll get it done. I do stupid things at home. Yeah, I did that on a wooden floor. It's not the smartest. Sometimes I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, you know. Look at the environment. You know, if you walk down the hall to the restrooms, you'll see a big sign that says tornado shelter. If you look outside, it looks pretty cloudy. I can't tell if it's gray or blue. But if there was a tornado warning, you'd have to know where you were going to go. Have you ever seen a rough terrain forklift or heard of a telehandler? It's just a big machine that has forks on it, and it's meant for lifting really heavy items in rough terrain. The manufacturer, OSHA, all the training that we do says you cannot use a telehandler or a rough terrain forklift when there's lightning. Yesterday I was doing telehandler training. I had to wait until the storm passed, and then 20 minutes after the storm passed, because lightning can reach 20 miles when you don't see it. I had to make sure it was passed before I can finish the training, because they have to get on the equipment and demonstrate that they can safely handle it. I have to be aware of the environment. We talked about heat stress. I got to be aware of the environment, and what am I going to do? Cold is coming up. What are you going to do to protect your employees from frostbite? Frostbite's not a pretty thing. You got to know what you're going to do. How are you going to protect them from the cold? How are your employees going to report hazards to you? Who do they report them to? Do you have a chain of command? Are they supposed to report it to their lead man, their foreman, their superintendent? Are they supposed to call their safety director? Are they supposed to call the owner? I don't know how large your companies are, but think about who do they report these to, because if there's a problem, they need to report them. And you got to be able to fix them. Ignorance is not an excuse. You have to have your employees report them. And how are they going to get that to you? You know, some companies have an 800 line that they use. If that's the way you're going to go, have an 800 line. Incident investigation. If something happens, you have to investigate it. You're looking for the direct causes. So, I'm coming to work. I actually, say I'm here. I'm walking across the floor, and I, step on this cord, and I sprain my ankle. Okay, that direct cause, stepping on cord, spraining my ankle. Okay? We're going to look at the indirect causes. Well, maybe it's not approved to wear wedge shoes to Francis Tuttle. That could be an indirect cause that I chose to do that. Could be an indirect cause that we didn't put yellow tape across the cord that says, hey, this is a problem. We get down to the root cause. What's the root cause? Maybe we don't have a plan in place to prevent people from tripping on cords, to make sure that procedure is when you lay down the cord, we mark it, we notify people. I know, I see you back there going, oh, she keeps picking on me, but it's obvious. We mark it, we notify people, and make sure that I know what kind of shoes I'm supposed to wear. So that could be the root cause. It's not that Deedee is just kind of sucks at walking and she's very clumsy. It's that the root cause is that we didn't take care of it in the beginning. We didn't say, okay, when we have this plan, this is what we're going to be doing. Hello? I think the aliens are talking to us. So you want to be able to go back all the way. And then you want to look at your trends. At the end of the year, when we get to record keeping, we're going to be talking about what's recordable and what's not recordable. You want to be able to say, my trends this year in injuries were hand injuries. These were my trends. I had, of my 10 injuries, 4 of them were hand injuries. 1 was somebody got a foreign body in their eye. 1 was a motor vehicle wreck, but whatever. Say 4 of them were hand injuries. Well, then you start looking at what happened. Why do people get their hands injured? Because someone keeps striking their hand. They struck their own hand with their own thumb with a hammer. Why? Because people forget where their hands are. That's why I have high vis tipped gloves, because people don't forget where their fingers are. Maybe somebody kept getting lacerations on their hands because they weren't wearing gloves, because I didn't have the right size for them. These are the trends I need to identify so I can prevent accidents in the future. Those same kind of accidents, because that's my goal. My goal is 0. 0 accidents, 0 injuries, 0 fatalities. That's our goal. 0. Okay, then we go on to hazard prevention and control. That's the 3rd step of our system. We want to look at how are we going to prevent hazards and how are we going to control them. Okay, so there's a little contraption on your automobile that dampens noise and controls noise level. What's that called? A what? Oh. A muffler. A window, my goodness. When they built automobiles, they were kind of loud, and the exhaust system was kind of loud. So as an engineering control, they engineered it into a device called a muffler, which dampened the sound and made it more pleasant to drive a vehicle or rolling up your window. Whatever your hazard is, maybe you can engineer out the problem. So you're working at height. Maybe instead of using a ladder, you can build some stairs. You can put some stairs in. That's engineering it out. Instead of having to wear fall protection, maybe I can put a walkway with a handrail up. Again, I engineered it out. Just got to be careful you don't engineer in a new problem. Sometimes that happens. You know, I have a quarry. I work for, I do OSHA training too. We got a new conveyor. Well, they did a beautiful job, and they were so concerned about people getting caught in or struck by the moving parts, they put the parts up high. Well, they didn't think that you have to go up there and do maintenance on it. So now they have to go 10 feet above the ground to work on it. There is no tie-off spot because they engineered another hazard that we have to address. You got to be real careful when you're thinking, oh, well, this is a huge hazard I need to address, that you don't engineer in another one. Next way you can do it is administrative controls. So we're working in here and it's really loud, okay? First, what I tell my guys, and we'll see if you can get it. How do you know when you need to have your hearing protection? It's real simple. If you have to raise your voice to be heard, it's too loud. You'll hear people say, oh, well, you got to get a dosimeter out here and you got to do this 8-hour reading and I got to make sure it's not above this certain decibels. No, you don't. If you have to raise your voice to be heard, it's too loud. Put your earplugs in. Pretty simple. Okay, so even with so here it is. It's really loud. We're working around these jet engines and we have earplugs and maybe we have earmuffs as well. But if we're going to be working here over an 8-hour time, OSHA has what they call a permissible exposure limit. In 8 hours, you're only allowed to be exposed to a certain amount of decibels in an 8-hour time. Even with our safety devices in place, we may not be able to have me work in an area for 8 hours without reaching that PEL. But what we can do is put an administrative control in. We can say, okay, Deedee, you're going to work here for 2 hours. Patty's going to work here for 2 hours. Alma's going to work here for 2 hours. And Victor's going to work here for 2 hours. Now what I've done is we have allowed that exposure to go across to many people instead of just to one person. And now none of us are exposed to allowed decibels for longer than 8 hours. So that's an administrative control. We want to make sure that we are not, if we can't engineer it out, we can administrate it out. If that's not possible, we also have to do training. I have to train you on what to do. On noise, I have to train you on how to put your earplugs in. You know, you don't just wad them up and shove them in your ear. You got to reach across, pull your ear up, put it in. You hold it, let it expand, then you let your ear go. And then you have a good seal on your ear. That's how you put your earplugs in. But I have to train you on how to do that. I have to train you on the correct selection of earplugs because everybody's ears are different. I have a guy at work who has huge ear canals, huge. I have to buy him huge earplugs. There's no way that earplug would fit in my ear, but he puts my earplug in his ear and it falls right out. So I have to make sure we get the right selection of earplugs, the right selection of ear muffs. Because again, people have huge heads. Some people have little pin heads. Got to make sure you do it right. Got to train them on this. And OSHA says you have to train them when they start and at least annually or if something changes. The last line of defense is personal protective equipment. This is the last way we're going to do hazard prevention. Why? Because I can train you, I can give it to you, I can provide it, but I cannot make you wear it. You know, car manufacturers provide you with a seatbelt. They have a little diagram saying, put it in, insert the slot, put your seatbelt on. But I can't make you do it. I can give you safety glasses, but I can't make you wear them. Yes?
You've said give and you've said provide.
Yeah.
At what point does the employee have responsibility in there? Like, for example, if we give them their first pair of gloves and 2 weeks later they need a new pair.
Well, OSHA's, yes, sir. Yeah. She said give or provide. And at what point, if you gave an employee a pair of gloves, at which point, and they come back 2 weeks later and they say, I need a new pair of gloves, when do you have to give it? There are certain personal protective equipment that OSHA says you must provide as the employer. Hard hats, you must provide them. Safety glasses, you must provide them. Gloves, you must provide them. Safety vests, you must provide them.
But an endless supply?
Well, this is what you do, is if I come back and I say, hey, I need a new pair of gloves. Deedee, give me your gloves back so I can make sure that they're, if I have worn holes through them, then yeah, I need a new pair of gloves. But if I just came back every day and say I need a pair of new gloves, no, I'm being irresponsible. I didn't forget to bring my lunch today. I didn't forget to bring my cell phone today. There's no reason I should forget to bring my gloves. It's the same thing. Same thing with safety glasses. I have certain crews that go through safety glasses really fast, but it's the crew they're on. If you're working with asphalt and finishing concrete splatters all over your safety glasses, and there is no cleaning those off. So I provide them with a lot of safety glasses. But I have to as the employer, and they can't clean them. They're trashed. You just throw them away and get them a new pair. But they bring them back to me to prove that they're trashed. I'm not going to just say, oh, well, here's an endless supply. Can't do that. It's not cost effective. Now, OSHA also says that there are certain garments the employee has to pay for. Boots, for one, unless it's mandatory. A certain kind of boot is mandatory for a type of work they're doing. Okay? So there are certain jobs that I work at, railroad jobs. Railroad says you have to have a certain kind of boot. And if you're working for Burlington Northern, if your boots don't come off their poster, you don't come on their job. So I have to provide my employees with Burlington Northern approved boots if we're working near a railroad job, because they're a specific kind of boot that has to be provided. But if it's just an everyday boot, you don't have to provide those. Everyday shoes, you don't have to provide those. Everyday clothing, you don't have to provide that. I have to provide welding sleeves and welding apron for my guys who are doing welding, but they can reuse that. They don't, it's not something that's mandatory. I don't have to provide red shirts for all my guys unless it's mandatory for a job.
So I'm not gonna have any issue with charging an employee for gloves who's irresponsible with them,
No, you won't.
or whatever else.
She asked if there would be a problem with charging an employee for gloves because they're irresponsible. No. You can send them home to get them. You forgot them, go home and get them. You don't have to pay them to go home and get them, but they need to go home and get them. Your employees still have a responsibility. They still have to participate, and they still have to be safe. They have to take responsibility for their own safety. You gotta wanna be safe. You wanna be hurt. And you gotta take care of your safety supplies. We have to provide them, but you have to take care of them. Okay. I'm gonna have to read these because as I said, it's an open book world. I don't memorize these, I always look these up. Okay, so we're gonna talk about in general industry real quick. This is 1910, okay? 1910, there's certain areas of 1910 that even though you're under construction and 1926 standards, you have to follow, okay? And there's certain things that you may do as a construction company that does not fall under 1910. It actually falls under, or 1926, it falls under 1910. So you need to be familiar or at least know where to find the answers for both, okay? So you might need to have a written program for means of egress. How are you going to exit? How are you going to enter? There are certain places that are, confined space. You need to be able to train somebody on what's a confined space, how to recognize it, and how do you enter and exit the confined space. This is subpart E. I didn't write subpart because I'd be doing a lot, but if you look at this and you're wondering what E stands for, if you go into your standard, you'll go to a place called subpart E, and anything under subpart E and 1910 will be means of egress. This is also under the standard will be employee emergency plans and fire prevention plans. What do you do in case of a fire? Where are you going to meet? How are you going to guarantee that everybody got out of the building? What are you going to do? You may need to have a written plan for this. Next.
What do you mean may?
There are certain places I don't need a fire prevention plan.
Okay,
I'm not working in an enclosed place.
so depending on the situation.
It depends on where you're at. So it has to be depend on your application. If you're working, if this is this building here, You'd have to have a fire prevention plan. What are you going to do in case of a fire? How are you going to evacuate? Where are you going to meet?
So pretty
What are
much
you gonna do?
like, for example, anybody, if they have a facility, is gonna have to have fire protection.
Yeah, if you have a facility, you're going to need a fire protection plan. So when I say may on these, it depends on your situation. Sometimes you will and sometimes you won't. You don't need a demolition plan if you never tear anything down.
And for example, on a
Yeah.
construction site, outdoor construction site, you wouldn't need fire.
Well, you may, depending on what you're doing.
But you
You know,
might.
yeah. You have to look at what's going on. So you may need it or you may not. And that's for you to decide. And I have to do these for every single job we get because each job is different. We're going to look at powered platforms, man lifts, and vehicle-mounted platforms. If you do not ever use an aerial lift, a man lift, a JLG, any of those, you don't ever have to worry about writing this program. You may not ever use it. But if you do, you need a program and you need to train people on it. Occupational health and environmental controls. This is personal protective equipment, hearing protection. How do you train on it? Inspection, maintenance, and installation. What are you going to do? How do you train on it? I don't have dip tanks. So I don't need to inspect them. Hazardous materials. You've heard of HAZCOM? This is HAZCOM. We want to know how do you control and how do you train people on what is flammable and what is combustible? Where do you store your containers of gasoline and diesel? Where do you put your explosive and blasting containers? Where do you put, if you're working with gas and oil, if you're working in the gas and oil, if you're doing any construction for them, are you following the process safety management? This is all covered under hazardous materials. This is depending in general industry whether you do this or not. Personal protective equipment. This is where you decide what kind of PPE you're going to use. Am I going to use, if I have to have a respirator, am I going to use a full respirator, a half mask respirator? And what kind of cartridges am I going to use? Am I going to use a particulate mask? Am I going to use, do they even need a respirator? You need to decide that. And if you do, you have to have a respirator protection program, respiratory protection program. General environmental controls. This is where you're going to look at lockout, tagout. This is engineering for electrical. Before you work on something electrical, you may need to lock it out, tag it out, so dumb Deedee doesn't come up and push the button because the machine's not on and you get squished. You got to train people on that. This is also where you're going to look at confined spaces. You want to also consider, oh, this is the next one. Medical and first aid, bloodborne pathogens. You want to know what are you going to do if there's workplace violence. If crazed dumb Deedee comes in here and thinks she's going to go a little postal, what do you do when crazed dumb Deedees come into your work site? How are you going to protect them? You got to figure out how you're going to protect your workers because that is a recognized hazard. Thanks to Edmond, Oklahoma, when they're the first ones who had a postal killing. That's where the term postal comes from. You got to know how you're going to protect your employees, and you have to have a plan in place for that. What are you going to do? Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment, since I'm in the traffic safety industry, you would think any fatality we had would be highway related. Fortunately, the only fatality we have had, we've only had one in our history, but it was a drive-by shooting here in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. But you know that could be a hazard, so you have to figure out what you're going to do. How are you going to protect that employee from a drive-by shooting? We all hear about them. We know it's a potential hazard. It's a recognized hazard, and OSHA says you have to protect your employee. Very carefully. No, I don't mean to be smart, but you really do. You have to think, okay, we were working in North Tulsa. You have to think, where am I going to put my, as I said, I put loader buckets around, but I had to figure out the spacing of loader buckets. How am I going to move loader buckets if my crew's on the move? How am I going to protect my employees? So you have to be very careful how you write it. But, you know, you guys work in, how many people have an office? How likely is it that you're going to have a ticked off customer who may come in and yell at you and get aggressive? Or if you fire somebody and you have a disgruntled former employee, you don't know if that person's stable or not. And you need to say, okay, when someone's terminated, they're not allowed back on the premises. If they need contact or they want a copy of their records, they're going to have to send it a copy of their ID, and it's going to have to be in writing, and we will mail it to them with an address that they provide. Or, you know, we'll send it certified to make sure it gets to them. But you got to be very careful on how you write it, and you want to make sure that it's addressed. And again, each place is different, and you just got to figure out how you're going to do it. And you know, you have to be pretty vague about it because each situation is different, and sometimes the vaguer is better. Fire protection. What are you going to do? How are you going to protect people from fires? Are you going to have a fire brigade? Are you going to have a crew that is trained to go fight the fire? That's your choice if you want somebody to go fight the fire. You got to train people on how to work fire extinguishers. This has to be separate. This is part of subpart L, but it has to be separate. You have to have a separate program on fire extinguishers from your fire protection plan per OSHA. You have to train people on how to use fire extinguishers. And you have to train them every year. If I decide I don't want to learn how to work a fire extinguisher, then I have to waive my right to work one. And I have to understand to get out. At my company, our guys are trained on how to use a fire extinguisher, but it's only meant to escape. I can replace a $300,000 piece of equipment, but I cannot replace the person who is operating it. It's only meant for a means of escape. Material handling and storage. Where are you going to store it? How are you going to handle it? Is there a certain kind of equipment you need to use to transport it? Do you need forklifts? If you have forklifts, you got to train everybody how to use a powered industrial truck. And that's actually what a forklift is. You got to train them how to use it. And this is the section that says this is what you have to do. This is where you'll find it. Machinery and machine guarding. You want to make sure that you're protecting your employees from in-running nip points, anywhere you can get your hand caught. You have to make sure that if you're working with a grinding wheel, that it's guarded. Again, telling a story on my company, we had a guy who cut off some fingers because he removed the guard, the fan shroud on, he was the paver operator. And you know, on a radiator, it's fan cooled, right? It cools the water that is in the radiator. Well, they put a guard across it. The manufacturer, Caterpillar, put a guard to protect. His job was to inspect it every day. Well, he removed the guard. He turned and pointed, sucked his hand, and cut off 3 fingers. Luckily, I had a program written. He was trained. He was signed off on the training, and he was the expert on the job. He was the qualified, competent person in that piece of machinery, and he just got laxed. You know, you just get so complacent because you get used to it. But he now is missing 3 fingers. Welding, cutting, and brazing. Welders have to be trained. You need to know where you're going to store your acetylene and your oxygen, where you're going to store it, how you're going to store it. Do you have to have a hot work permit for welding? Yeah. You have to have a welding permit where you're going to put this stuff. Special industries. These special industries include paper pulp mills, laundry machines. You want to know a big story about laundry machines, why you have to have a special industry? Did you guys hear, this was a couple years ago in Tulsa, a guy working at Cintas, which is a big laundry facility. He was a non-English speaking Hispanic. He was working at Cintas Laundry Facility, and he was walking on a catwalk over some dryers that were operating. And these dryers dried at 240 degrees. He lost his balance, fell into the dryer, and was in there for 20 minutes. He didn't make it. That catwalk didn't have handrails. There's no way to prevent him from falling in. He wasn't tied off. What they did was say, here's a book. I need you to read it. Didn't make sure he could read. It was in English. He couldn't read. He probably couldn't read in English. I can't guarantee he could read in Spanish. He had to train him. It doesn't matter if my employees are Hispanic, if they're Chinese, if they're English. I have to train them in the language that they speak. I have to. It's whatever anybody's political reasons are, I care about their safety. I want to make sure they understand what they're doing. I care about that person. They're working for me. They become mine. And I want to make sure I take care of them. And the best way I can do it is to, if they couldn't read it to them and make sure they understand it. Question them, train them, show them a video. But make sure that they completely understand what was going on. Cintas ended up getting I think it was a $2.8 million fine for this gentleman's fatality. Because their answer is, well, I gave him a book, it's not my fault I didn't read it. No, it was your fault. I hear a lot of people say, I'm going to use a curse word, I apologize. How did this accident happen? Oh, because he was a dumbass. No, he wasn't. If you didn't train him, you failed him, you were the dumbass. That's who the dumbass is. It wasn't the person who got hurt, it was you who failed to train him. If I failed to train him, if I failed to give him the information, then that makes me the dummy, not the guy who got hurt. I failed that person. Electrical related, work related practices. This is just what kind of training you do for people who work in electrical industries. This is commercial diving. Anybody here a commercial pearl diver? If so, I'd like some pearls, please. If you do any diving, commercial diving, there's actually people who do commercial diving here in Oklahoma who go down and look at the bottom of bridges or tanks, or there's some rivers and lakes where you have big old gas lines going across the bottom. They have to go down there and inspect. That's commercial diving. They have special training. I don't do commercial diving. I don't have to have training on this. I don't have to have a program on it. Toxic and hazardous substances. There are certain substances OSHA deems so hazardous you have to have special training, and you have to, example, asbestos, methyl chloride, methyl ether. There's lots of ones. Lead, cadmium, benzene, cotton dust, sugar dust. Ionizing radiation. If you work with any of this stuff, you have to have special training and you have to have a program on it. You guys in QA/QC, do you ever use the nuke gauge? You have to do training on that, and you have to have special training, and you have to have a program written on it. You do have to be certified. Okay, construction. This is 1926. This is, and there's certain things that in construction, or that's in general industry that's not in construction. One is confined spaces. In general industry, there's a standard called 1934, and it's, 20 pages thick. And that covers confined spaces. In construction, it's 2 paragraphs. 2 paragraphs. OSHA keeps saying, oh, well, we're working on a new standard, but it takes them forever to work on a new standard. 20 years to get a new standard out, so I don't expect to see it anytime soon. So if I'm going to be working and have my guys in a confined space, I use general industry. Even though if you read the general industry standard, the first part it says does not apply to construction. But what else are you going to do? Where else are you going to get information to train your guys? So this is safety training and education. Emergency action plans, again, what are you going to do if there's a tornado? What do you do in case of a lightning or earthquake or fire or flood or crazy Deedee coming into your office with a gun? What do? This is where you get your plan. This is where you write it. Occupational health and environmental controls. This is first aid, CPR. You have to train your people on first aid and CPR. Ionizing radiation, gas, vapors, fumes, dust, mists, hazard communication. All of this is right here. A lot of this in subpart D actually refers you back to 1910. When you go onto the OSHA website or you go into the book, it says look at 1910. That's why I say I want you guys familiar with 1910 so you know where you can find it. Personal protective and life-saving equipment. If you're working near water, you have to have buoy rings so you can throw out and get some people out. You gotta provide life vests if you need it. Hearing protection and respiratory protections in this. This is the plans. There are certain sections in the OSHA CFR that actually tell you exactly how the program has to look. It has to have this section, this section, this section, this section. These two programs, hearing protection and respiratory, actually tell you exactly what has to be there. There's others that just say you have to have a program. It doesn't say how you have to write it. Yes, ma'am.
Working near water,
Mm-hmm.
our guys work on a bridge occasionally,
Mm-hmm.
but they aren't there for extended period of times. Would we need the life?
She asked.
Is there a definition?
Well, it depends. It's the application. Okay. She asked if her guys are working on a bridge and they're not there for an extended period of time, do they need life vests? And it depends on the application. If they are building the bridge and there is nothing there to prevent them from falling off, then yes, they do. If they're up on the bridge and they have the Jersey barrier or the barrier along the wall that prevents cars going off, then no, they don't. If they're working alongside the bridge, say here's the bridge, over here's the water. If they're within 20 feet, 20 feet's a different one. 10 feet from the edge of the water, then you have to provide them some way to rescue them. And you may even need to provide them with a boat to rescue them. We were looking at bidding a job at Grand Lake, across the lake, and I'm like, I will be the person in the boat. I will be her. I will come out and rescue you. Can we take a quick break? Let's take a quick break. I need some water.